do have Carrie that's not yet here. Hopefully she'll be here shortly. Do we have any declarations of interest that anyone wants to note that isn't in our standard declarations? Rob?
Yes, just to note on item 5, I do live in the Maidenbrook estate where there's a proposal or item put forward, and I'm also on the Play Park Working Group, which refers to monies in there as well.
But none of those are pecuniary interests, are they?
No, not presently.
No,
interest now.
so you can still take part.
Right, good check.
Perfect. Any other declarations? Nope. So agenda item number 3 is to sign off the minutes from our 20th of January meeting. If I just go through those a second, go through them by pages. Any questions or comments on the minutes on page 1, or page 2, page 3? I've got the IT procurement exercise. Ed, just wanted to ask how that's going.
I'm still working on it.
Okay. Have we got timescales or anything at all?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Gail, do you want to come in on timescales?
Yeah, I believe that we're now finished, the officers have finished the review and we're waiting to send the questions to the 3 tenderers so that we can get them in and interview them. So it would be helpful if we could get your questions and your tender evaluation as soon as possible.
Right. That's okay. And then on page 4, any changes or anything? If not, who's happy to propose them? Rob and Paul, you're happy to second? Perfect. Sign those. So on to the forward plan, just looking at what
Yeah, I didn't think we took a vote for that.
Oh, sorry, I just signed those then. We'll take a vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. I'll now sign every page and date them, rather than just the last page. And welcome Councillor Ellis to the meeting. So on to the forward plan, just looking at what we've got ahead of us. Any questions, comments, or anything that anyone wants to add on those, looking at what we've got ahead of us? Any questions on that? Nope. Anything? No. Oh, Paul?
Just to say that the forward plan only goes as far as today.
I was just looking at that while I was scanning down, going, have we got the wrong date? So will we get a new one for the new year? So because we've got the new year that takes place after the AGM, we'll then get new forward plans coming forward for that. And because we're quite a cyclical committee, we will see standard items as we go through the year. That's any updates to any policies as they move forward, isn't it? So, and we'll get that for our next meeting. Okay. But we're happy to note this one. Any questions on anything at all? No. I'm happy to propose that we note it. Just seconding. All those in favour? Perfect. So we'll move on to agenda item number 5, which is the request from Giuseppe bringing forward. And you wanting to present the first bit, Giuseppe? How would you like?
I believe, Chair, there's a statement from Amy to be read out as well, the parish clerk from Westmontford.
Yeah, we've got that as well.
I haven't seen it. So
okay, no, that's fine.
Yeah, that's cool. I just was in dialogue earlier, so I haven't seen it. Mark, I don't know if it's useful to read it out.
You want to do your bit first,
Yeah,
and then we'll go on to perfect.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So this is an agenda request form from Councillor Giuseppe Fruscini and to consider and if supportive recommend the proposal to full council in line with the council's adopted SIL policy if satisfied that the criterion that must be demonstrated for proposals in the SIL policy at 2.16 has been met. So just to take you through the report. I think as saying, sort of the key section there is that 2.16 and the sort of the finance section, part 5, finance and resource implications. Sorry, Jen, did you just want to?
Well, I didn't know whether actually if we can give people just a few moments to also read unless we want to record it by reading it out, but whether people want time to read what was the statement from West Monkton, if that was okay, just because that came in, hasn't it? So that you've not seen it either.
I've not seen it, so reading it out would be great.
Yeah, reading it out, perfect. Oh, I'm happy to read it out if you like, or do you want to read it?
Or did I if you want?
I don't have it on me.
Ollie, do you want to read it out?
Thank you, Chair. So this is from the clerk from the West Monkton Parish Council. It will also be attached as an appendix to the minutes for any members of the public who want to read. West Monkton Parish Council provides this statement in support of the Tudor Park Crossing Point proposal. The proposed crossing point that West Monkton Parish Council has supported through the commissioning of a feasibility study offers the following benefits for the local area. Improved pedestrian safety. Although the safe route to school for children travelling to/from Monkton Wood Academy and Monkton Heathfield is through Waterleys, school children rarely use it, instead opting for the shorter route. This means that many school children cross the road at this point. Although a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit is in place, the road is busy and it is often difficult for school children to cross. There have been reported incidents of near misses and accidents at the location. The crossing point will reduce/eliminate these. Point number 2 is active travel across Meadenbrook Country Park and the Somerset Wood. A crossing point will enable more people to access Meadenbrook Country Park and the Green Wedge. The park does not currently have provision for parking, although there are plans to install a small car park in the coming months. The park is predominantly only accessible through active travel. Through lottery funding, Meadenbrook Country Park and the Somerset Woods has increasing facilities available to members of the community, including most recently a wildlife trail and a picnic area. Regular community events also take place throughout the year at the park. Work to install pathways throughout the park is scheduled to commence later in March and will be completed by the end of April. The park provides green open space and access to it improves the health and well-being of our local community. Third point, active travel route to the play pitch at Waterleys. West Monkton Parish Council plans to bring the Waterleys play pitch into full use by installing FA approved changing facilities which will enable full use of the play pitch and provide much needed infrastructure for the community. There is limited/no provision for parking at the pitch. Active travel routes to the pitch are therefore needed. The crossing point will enable this. Fourth point, Yallands Hill crossing point. The feasibility study for the proposed crossing point included another crossing point at Yallands Hill. The Tudor Park crossing point at the Yallands Hill and the Yallands Hill crossing point will collectively complete the need for crossing points in the area. The Yallands Hill crossing point is being progressed by West Monkton Parish Council. Financial support. The Parish Council is actively working on delivering a number of projects for our local community, including the completion of the country park, the possible expansion of the country park to complete the Somerset Wood, installation of the Poppy of Honour at the country park, Hyde Park sports ground to provide a rugby pitch, cricket pitch and nets, a pavilion and a pump track, changing facilities at the Waterleys pitch, a junior football pitch adjacent to Bridgewater Road, further infrastructure required for the next phase of the Monkton Heathfield development, and the Yallands Hill crossing point. Parish Council is seeking grant funding and developer contributions where possible for these projects, in addition to community infrastructure levy receipts. Due to the number of projects that the Parish Council has already committed to complete, the Parish Council is unable to provide financial support for the Tudor Park crossing point but is committed to work with the Town Council to ensure the delivery of the Tudor Park and Yellens Hill crossing points. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, can I just clarify the bit at the very end there where it says the parish council is unable to provide financial support for the Tudor Park crossing point, but is committed to work with the town council to ensure the delivery of the Tudor Park and Yellens Hill crossing point. Does that mean they can't financially support it, but they'll support us in other ways? It seemed like they were saying one was supported, they would support, and one they wouldn't. They were reading that wrong.
I can answer that question.
Karen,
Thank you, councillor. Yes, so I believe that West Monkton Parish Council are going to be prioritising their SIL funding for the Yallens Hill crossing point. But we've agreed as a parish council to work in partnership with them when this was discussed at your planning, development and licensing committee last May, was it? I think, yeah, May 2025. And so they're willing to work in partnership if it, you know, on activities like such. I think they want to run a public consultation on both crossing points if it's something that Taunton Town Council is wishing to progress and take further, obviously, depending on the outcome of this and further meetings. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you, Chair. I had hoped that somebody from West Monkton might have been attending this evening, because I don't think Giuseppe would probably be able to answer any questions on these. I've got a couple that's come up from this, reading this statement through. Perhaps we could go back, if the questions could go back to West Monkton if we can't get an answer this evening. But the to work to install pathways at the park, which would be absolutely brilliant, would they be disability friendly? Because the path in there present is more of a hardcore path, isn't it? Which is, for some types of mobility scooters, is a little bit rough to ride along. Point two of my question is installing the FA approved changing facilities would be again a great asset and a brilliant thing. And when a member of Cheddon Fitzpaine Parish Council, we were working towards those lines away. But I'm at a loss at the minute to see, is that within the town council boundaries or West Monkton Parish Council boundary, that actual play park? Would you know, just have it?
You want me to? Yeah. So I'll answer your first question from our conversations, mine and Marcus's conversations with Amy when we met recently. That there is going to be pavement, proper pavement, so it's going to be accessibly friendly. It's not going to be the hard stone core stuff that's there at the moment. So regarding this, so yes, the reason why they're prioritising Yallens Hill crossing over this one is because this falls in the Taunton Town Council area and Yallens Hill falls in the West Monkton Parish Council area. The pitch, so as you probably are aware, that area, when the development was first built 20 odd years ago, was designated as sporting use pitch, and that's all it could be used for. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, the developers never got round to installing it, building it, and it, up until now, 20 odd years later, nothing's ever happened. So I started a conversation with Amy about bringing this pitch into use. And one, because there is a distinct lack of sort of county facilities, county standard facilities within Taunton. We've had Somerset FA down, Football Foundation have come down, and they have said that they are willing to contribute, if not pay for, aspects of the changing facilities and the infrastructure for a county standard ground. So what I mean by county standard ground is it's not just going to be an open field, it's not going to be a park. County standard ground has to be where there's perimeter fencing around the pitch, has to be there's a certain standard of level that a team can play at. So if you look at Staple Grove down in Corkscrew Lane, they have pitch parameters. That is a county standard pitch. Hamilton Park is just a park, it wouldn't class as a county standard pitch. So it's about ground grading. As the higher you go up through the football pyramid, you are required to meet certain ground grading. And a county standard pitch has certain aspects which a park wouldn't have, because obviously to progress through the football pyramid, you have to meet certain criteria. So this would be an enhancement on just a standard park, Hamilton Park, whatever, Taunton Green, whatever. This would be a county standard pitch with facilities that would match, which would be a huge boost for the Taunton sporting landscape. They already have potential suitors for the pitch on a Saturday and a Sunday, including men's and women's. One of those teams on a Sunday would be North Wales United, the mighty United, where I run, which we would be then looking to maintain on their behalf, cut the grass and all that type of stuff. But also then there's the aspect of having women's teams set up as well through a new club that's coming through, which I can't really talk about on a Saturday at the moment, but it's coming through and will be coming public within the next month or so. And that's men's and women's, with a view of having youth football there as well in the future. So I want you all to kind of see it more as a grander project than just a crossing, because this project isn't just about a crossing, it's about unlocking opportunities for our residents. So obviously you've got Maidenbrook Country Park, which we all know is a wonderful project and is a labour of love for many hundreds of people, and is growing into something marvellous and fantastic, and will be a gem for Taunton, and is a gem for Taunton. Lots of community stuff happens there. The crossing is a separate project in itself, and that is to boost the safety of...
Can I just get back to my question, please, Giuseppe? I'm more looking at it from our finance and governance point of view. Yeah. Was that FA approved facility changing facilities in our boundaries or in West Monkton's boundary?
So from what I understand,
looking at what the financial implications could be for us over and above the bridge or the crossing, the points to what we might be.
So I believe Taunton, Marcus, you can correct me on this, the boundary for the Taunton Town Council runs along the path. So actually the boundary for the pitch itself lies in West Monkton.
This covers what I was asking.
Am I right in thinking that? And then, so that path there is Taunton Town's boundary, literally the whole estate, Tudor Park, coming through to Waterley. So it kind of cuts out the park.
No, that's fine. That's good. So if it isn't in our boundary, we wouldn't have any potential liability, although we could do some combined other things. Just one more question, please, if I may, Chair.
Go for it.
On the reverse side of the paper, and I'm sorry if you haven't got one, Giuseppe, it does mention Hyde Park Sports Ground to provide a rugby pitch, cricket pitch, a nets pavilion, and a pump track. Where's Hyde Park Sports Ground?
That's the Taunton Rugby Club.
So it's the new land, so it's not quite the rugby club.
Round the corner.
If you got the ring road as you come around Monkton Heathfield alongside the new houses, and you've gone through the oldie roundabout by the bus lane, but you've gone right round there, it's there to the right. So the parish have worked really well.
That's just a general financial support to the local community, that statement in those paragraphs. Yeah, that's fine.
That they're providing more support.
Yeah, I was getting a bit confused that was going to be on that park in that area.
Cricket and rugby facilities, because there's a lack of cricket and rugby facilities over that end of the town. So which is why they've not gone for football.
And that's already being used, because my son played on it the other weekend. It's already there, and they're putting the pump track.
Yeah, great.
So just to recap then, so there's kind of obviously three separate projects here, which I kind of want you to look at it in that way about what it will unlock. The problem with the pitch at the moment is we don't have any adequate parking provision, and we don't really want people driving through the estate. So there is an opportunity potentially to work with the developers DWH. To the left of Maidenbrook Lane there's a piece of land that was going to be handed over to the country park and turning that into a car park. This would then serve overflow car parking for Maidenbrook Country Park, but also would serve as the parking for the football pitch itself. And that's a possible aspiration. There's also an aspiration about putting in the car park within the area of the park as itself at the moment, but that would be removing potentially, these are only ideas that are floated at the moment, nothing in concrete, removing a play park to then re-site that play park within Waterley's estate to then put a car park in at the very bottom. So because we don't really want 30 cars, whatever, driving through the estate on a Saturday, Sunday morning. So this is what we will do. This is bringing this this land, this sporting land, into use and having it regularly used at a top standard pitch, and improving that safety. And in terms of the safety, what it says in the report is not an accurate picture of what is captured, because I know for a fact recently there has been a collision with a school child recently that's not in this report, and whether or not that was reported or not is reported to me as the local councillor for the area, and I had to call the school to make sure the child was okay, and they said it was fine. But there was a collision recently there with a school child. It isn't safe. The surface isn't safe either. I remember taking my boy on his bike and trying to cross the road at some point and then nearly toppling over because the surface is also uneven. It is a dangerous point, as Amy rightly states. Kids will be kids, and kids will take the shortest route. We were all kids once. We will all openly admit that we're not perfect, and we probably would have all done the same. This will people wait a long time to cross here, and sometimes people do take a risk and cross, and this is a real issue. Not only is the issue just there's also an issue with Maidenbrook Lane. The sight lines of Maidenbrook Lane. So within the report, it does make some suggestions about improving the sight lines and the entrance to Maidenbrook Lane and potentially Tudor Park as well. So this is about opening up and making it visible. And this is a real issue. This has been an issue that's been up for discussion for at least 5-6 years within the area as development has grown. There are more people, and of course that road also gets severely impacted when the motorway has an accident. So that road is obviously used as a diversion, and it is heaving when there's an accident on the motorway. We will shortly be starting discussions with Highways England about their potential input as well, about what they can do. There may be some funding or some work in kind that they can do through their payback service within communities that are affected with the work that they do. So that's obviously not a given, but that's a conversation which I'm shortly starting with them, and have been in discussions with certain people who work within their organisation. So it is, I believe, a much needed safety point and crossing to be installed, and I hope you see the value in it, because obviously you can't put a price on a life, but we all know that it's a dangerous crossing, and obviously we want to avoid issues in the future. And I myself have had a near miss at this junction as well, coming out of Maidenbrook Lane as well as a runner, where cars couldn't see me and didn't just to manage to stop. So yeah, it's a dangerous area that needs addressing.
Thank you, Giuseppe. I'm going to bring in lots of different people. I just want to clarify a few things just so that we can bring it back to what we need to do as Taunton Town Council, because a lot of it is around the fact that it's on the border, but that for me personally, residents don't see borders and where they come as to who does what. It's around whether or not, one, we have capacity, both in resource and also the financial resource to be able to do it. Also around, I guess, the Highways Authority, I know that we've now had that feasibility study. They would obviously look at it from their point of view in their projects as to whether or not it met their requirements for immediate action, which I presume it doesn't because it hasn't been done. So for me, if I'm understanding the report correctly, we are recommending this to go to full council where it would be debated again, but at the moment we don't have the SIL funding or funding available in this current year per se, or even probably what we've got coming forward, in order to do the full blown works, which could be in the 200,000 element. Is that right? I've understood that correctly, because of the fact that we've chosen to put that money into the play parks.
Yes, that's correct, Chair. So 5.2, as reported at December full council, any uncommitted SIL funding, currently 101,000, is proposed to support the delivery of the 1.2 million play park scheme. And also in terms of officer resource at 5.4, this has not yet been through a project initiation analysis, and whilst it would largely be delivered by Somerset Council, it would likely qualify as a major project given the spend and complexity, and that's one of the risks that's highlighted in the report.
And I'm open-minded, and again, I'll hear other people's questions and queries and debates. Is there a halfway house if we didn't want this to go to full council that we could ask for the major projects group to look at it to see what is available? Because at the moment we don't have 200,000 spend, but there is perhaps a place for the major projects group to open up conversations with highways at Somerset Council to go, actually, if you were doing this project, which one would you go for, the 50, the 100 or the 200, and be guided by them? Or does that make sense what I'm saying? Because at the moment, I think that something needs to happen here, and I'm not saying it doesn't, but we don't have £200,000. So it is all about choices, and choices can be changed, environments can happen. But is there a halfway house about the major projects working group looking at it anyhow? I don't know. I'll open it up to, I've got Bev first, then I had Ed, and then I'll come to Caro, then I'll come back to you, Rob.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Chair. Now, and I think it is, and thank you, Giuseppe, for all the work that's gone into this so far. And I think the important thing is that we are here to look at the crossing, the Allens crossing. I just wonder whether, obviously, West Monkton Parish Council have provided a really comprehensive list of things that they want to see, and I'm just wondering, if the active travel route, isn't there external funding that could help with that as part of all this? There needs to be a crossing for everything, for those to access those facilities. So maybe there's mileage in looking for external funding to provide that crossing to access this, or the people that are actually helping to provide the sports ground, the pump track, and all of those different things, maybe they could help to contribute to the crossing to get the people there. I absolutely agree 100% with Federica. We don't have the money available. The SIL funding is all committed. We haven't got that amount of money. I completely empathise with you about the danger of the road. I'm currently put some of my ward, in fact all of my Ward Medalist Initiative scheme money into a feasibility study for the Trawl Road, because the kids at Parkfield School have to cross Trawl Road every day, and there is no crossing. There's no safe crossing point for there. So we desperately need a crossing on Trawl Road. So 100% I agree with what you're saying about safety. However, the fact remains we don't have the SIL funding available to help support this. Thanks, Chair.
Ed, over to you.
Thank you. With the so 5.1, what do we get for the 50,000? What do we get for the 200,000? I don't think we'll be able to answer that slide, but that'll be a question for highways. And with the car park, did the developers give an estimation as to how many cars they could fit into that piece of land, or is it just a sort of idea?
No, this is an idea at the moment. Obviously, we're trying to figure out the best way of delivering all of this. And so we know that there's a piece of land there that we're going to start discussing with the developers there, that they would have, they instigated that they were going to give this over to Maidenbrook Country Park at some point anyway. So yeah, so that's on that one. If I may just come back on Bev's points, I'm not necessarily asking for the full figure, because rightly there is other avenues to explore. Asking to a contribution towards this crossing, which would help us kickstart it, and we will continue. Amy is always looking at applications of housing developments and all sorts of things where she's putting in SIL requests. I know she's put in a request for the Lingford Lane development to help fund the pitch and all of this type of stuff. So she's actively looking, and we're also actively looking. So having Taunton Town Council contribute, but also act as a partner in helping us acquire this additional funding would be incredible, because it's greatly needed. But as I said, if you look at it just as a crossing, it's not just a crossing, because what it unlocks and what it actually helps to achieve in terms of the whole area for the town as well. Obviously, you've got all the educational stuff that goes in the Maidenbrook Country Park. You're going to have the sporting use for health and well-being as well in the football pitch. So there's a lot of boxes that get ticked by improving the safety and unlocking them to a greater number of people.
Marcus, do you want to come back in?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just on the point that Councillor Furman raised, it's at the bottom of page 13 as to what the £50,000 option, which is option 1C, improvements to existing conditions. And that talks about widening existing footways, putting in high friction surfacing, signing and lining improvements. So it wouldn't be the delivery of a proper crossing, so to speak.
Sorry, page 13 of which?
Oh, appendix A, sorry.
Thank you.
Harry, do you want to come in?
Yeah, so let me just get this straight. So it's on the boundary, it crosses, you know, as many things do. It's a bit like the project we're doing where we're park funding at Bishop's Hole. You know, the road starts in Taunton and it goes into then Bishop's Hole and we're working together. I totally get the point about the safety on that area. I think that's where when I go to the Maidenbrook on Park at yours and we go across there. So I know that area, and so it's obviously crucial that something is done safety wise, you know, just if only even for the kids trying to get to school safely at the moment. That's, you would think there'd be a high premium on that. So I'm sort of thinking, yeah, of course we should, you know, in principle, where I'm coming from is of course we should look to cooperate and contribute. And it's just the question of, for me, timing and available resources now. So as long as we're not committing to something that we're not going to necessarily be able to deliver, but we're showing, I'd like us to sort of show willing and progress it somehow, because I think we all, you know, that just seems like common sense to me. I mean, the thing about SIL funding, it comes, doesn't it? It's sort of a rolling programme, which you can't entirely predict. So what you have is a bank of projects, don't you? And say, right, well, this one, the next lot, that's going for that. That's, and then when that runs out, the next thing is this. We are going to have a number of other potential crossings and things coming forward, aren't we? So I just think we ought to sort of show willing and in principle look to cooperate. But again, obviously Giuseppe's pointed out that it's not, when then the ask is not for us to cough up 100 grand, whatever, it's to potentially contribute. I do think, I mean, if there's a massive difference between the precept for Taunton Town Council, say in West Munster, I can't off the top of my head, I don't know where it is. So I'd kind of be sort of thinking if I was, this would be an easier ask of us if they raise their precept next year or whatever to help cover extra projects, because it is partly. But I do, if there's a way we can, you know, I understand you're the next with another bit of your project anyway, aren't there? We're not at the point yet where we know exactly there's not a recommendation for a specific crossing yet. And that was the last bit of money, isn't it, that you've got for the board member thing?
Yeah, so we've got to have now a speed survey test done, and then that will determine which is the most appropriate crossing to put in. Once, if it's over 37 miles, it's the 37 miles an hour, it's the Toucan crossing. If it's under 37 miles, then they suggest that it could be the other parallel crossing, so which obviously would reduce it by somewhat. So that I think will only take a couple of weeks till we get back, Marcus, I believe. So as long as the 300 quid's been paid, then they said they'll crack on with it, didn't they? So
yeah, so the £300 traffic speed survey was approved at the committee last week, the community in place, and they did have a gap where they said, but because they had to wait, we had to wait for the approval for the further 300. I don't know whether that means that they've got similar. I think they had a gap between projects, so we need to confirm with them the timescales, but hopefully it shouldn't take too long.
I just want to check something, Marcus, because for me, I want us to be able to do something. I'm trying to understand process, and I don't like to get bogged down in process, but we obviously I wasn't sure, I didn't know that the speed survey was taking place, and that's kind of like the next step, so to speak, on the ladder of where this can go. Because I'm still coming back to the idea that I'd like major projects to look after it and for us to then see where it goes then. But I don't know whether we need to sanction any more money, because I'm not sure whether this needs to go to full council at the moment to sanction any money, but rather it goes to major projects and for them to kind of see where it can go, because we haven't got the full 200,000, but I do want to do something for it. Bev, oh sorry, and then Rob, but I'll come back to you in a second. Rob, sorry.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Frederica, but I think the major projects are pretty full. I don't know where it would come in the order of priorities within the major projects team.
Chairing it, we are definitely full.
Yeah, and I think that would potentially add delay, yes, I feel that there may be something that we can do, because as Giuseppe has added, is looking for a contribution, not necessarily those figures of 50 to 200,000. And I think it may be maybe thinking about not to get too hung up on those 50,000 to 200,000. As Giuseppe said, I've just had a quick look through the agenda request form, and there's definitely something about a contribution. So it's not about the full amount, but that said, it's how we.
I'm not sure where you would get other funding for a crossing for though. So you get other funding for all the other things that are going on, two different bodies, but I don't know where would you get other funding for a highway project.
Somerset Council have got an active travel. Have they got any money left from that?
I can't speak definitively, but I do know that funding has been cut, being a rural council, and therefore active travel is suffering. That was a press article this week that has come out.
Because I know that, again, that was something I was considering for the Troll Road crossing, whether, because apart it's I think the active travel part of it was looking at pathways, travelways, walking routes.
Or whether we roll it up with both of yours together and look at what's available, where you've got two safety schemes coming together for the major projects to do. I don't know, but Rob.
Yeah, I totally agree with what everybody said and agree that something needs to be done. But I really don't think we have enough information to make any concrete sort of suggestion or wherever. It on the road safety audit paper in there, whoever did that, I think it's Somerset's, probably highways, but they went on Monday the 17th of November at 11 o'clock in the morning for a while. Well, that's going to be quite a quiet time of day, so I quite agree if Giuseppe has said there's going to be another speed awareness that needs to be and it is a busy road, isn't it? It's quite quick between there. Other considerations, I would say, have we looked at, or has anybody looked at putting a bridge over there rather than another set of traffic lights? Because I think the parallel, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a living local, there's two sets of pedestrian crossings, and this will be another one in the middle. And I just think at busy times, the traffic congestion, if the motorway, like Councillor Frassini said, is directed in there, we could be quite gridlocked with another set of pedestrian crossing. So I really don't know what the solution is. I do like what the narrative or video you put on Facebook to get some local, I don't know what the latest is on that, but there's quite some good comments on there about the amount of money and different things. And I think it might be a good idea to do a public consultation as well in the area to see what the public say, because the Maidenbrook estate itself is only 230 houses, so the traffic or the residents footfall going to the country park over that crossing that way is quite limited. But I could agree as well that is the school children's taking the least line of resistance will probably go that way. So the 50,000, the changing of or enhancing the infrastructure there already, in my mind, seems a good thing. But again, I think that it's, to my mind, it's not quite enough information, that we need more to make a firm decision.
I was going to ask a process question again. Can we under our constitution get us to come back at the next meeting after we've had the speeding results and defer it after we've had the speeding results, and we ask highways to come along or have a further conversation with highways and ask around active travel funding? So that way we have both. I know we've had the highway safety, but once they've got the speeding, what would if Somerset Council was doing the scheme, what is it that they would do? Because they are the experts. They do 7,000 kilometres of road across our county. Obviously, they're financially challenged, and that's always the case when it comes to highways not receiving enough compared to what we need. But I think having that information in my world, and I'm happy to change that, but having that information along with the speeding information, along with then having a bit more understanding, is there any other funds available, then helps guide us as to what we do moving forward, because I think we can send this to full council today, and I think we'll all have those same questions and sit here going, I don't know what decision to make. And I don't think we would go for up to the 200,000 without the information available. That's my current feeling, but Ed.
If we were to take 50,000 out of the play park scheme from the SIL, how would that impact the play park scheme?
Unfortunately, the standing orders say you can't go back on the decision that's been made within 6 months, so we couldn't remove that money from that decision because it's not been 6 months, and it would have to go back to full council.
Yeah, I appreciate all the work you've done on this and the council, and I hearing it sounds like we're trying to find a way forward. My question is around the SIL money gets done twice yearly or something, so I'm keen to keep this ready for consideration when we get another. I don't want this to get lost or whatever. So my question is, when do we as a group or as a council next get to decide, is our SIL, are all SIL payments for this year allocated to the play parks, or is that done now that 100,000 is done? Do you see what I'm trying to say? I'm trying to say that about what Councillor Fernandez says, let's get this in a queue and give it consideration.
Still available of unallocated funds, isn't there?
No, that's 33,000. Actually, Angela has brought with her a breakdown of what we've had in SIL, where it's come from, and what's remaining unallocated at the moment.
And Angela, can you just answer as well alongside when you answer this? We aren't expecting loads in coming forward because we've had phosphates and we aren't seeing the building out in Taunton that is expected.
I would say based on the last payment that we received in October, that a lot of the SIL payments tend to be paid in three sums. And the October payment that we received was actually saw the conclusion of a lot of the payments. Now Orchard Grove has started building again. Whether we'll get some more from there, I don't know. But overall, then it isn't. I don't expect a lot next year. No, we had just under 80,000 in 25-26. So I'm not expecting a lot at the moment. Obviously at the moment, as you've said and as you can see, members have committed 101,000 to the play parks. But obviously the bridge contribution isn't committed in full, so you have got the option if you wanted to of revisiting that decision if you so wish. It's over a year ago now that it was taken, so there are options there if you do want them, but that is the current state of play based on where we are, what's been committed, what's been ring-fenced and what's been paid. Yes, we will do eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll eventually get it from Staple Grove, just like Monkton Heathfield will get it from, or West Monkton Parish Council will get it from MH2 when MH2 starts, won't it? So they'll see a significant funding coming in. I'm happy to propose that we defer this, and that isn't us saying that we don't want to do it, Giuseppe, and hopefully you've heard that really loud and clear. I think it's about us having further information to then move forward. I think we're committed to wanting to do something. It's around priorities and funding, and I think the speeding report and those other two bits of information, if we can have them, would be useful. And I don't know whether we need it as finance and governance to recommend it to full council, because that's how our process works, or actually just full council will need them regardless if it decided to want to use SIL funding. I don't think it matters, so I don't know.
I think it would be useful under the SIL policy and the have that information, like you say. It would be opportunity to be sat there at the full council without members asking this question, not able to then make a determination. So I think the little more information, the better. Thank you.
Giuseppe, you wanted to come back?
Yeah, just to say, yeah, I was a bit hesitant about bringing it here tonight because obviously there is a little bit of lack of detail. So I was worried that I was like, I'm almost going to get thrown out without even thinking. But I'm grateful that you've kind of seen the whole thing, which is I'm really grateful for. So to date, in terms of my ward members initiative, I've spent 1,800. I've still got about six something left, which I'm committed to putting straight to this crossing. So finding out if there is additional money from elsewhere, and maybe bringing Amy into the conversation from West Monckton as well. Finding out where other parts of money may come from, I think is a great, and yeah, deferring it. I'm all for deferring it until there's more information that comes through. And yeah, I'm grateful that you're not putting it in the bin and you want to do something. I can sense that, so that's great and that's positive. So yeah, that's kind of where we are. And we had I started the petition late Friday night, just to kind of gauge interest. And there was over 100 people had signed it in sort of 2.5 days, which is great. And probably about 90% of Tudor Park residents signed it. They all want it. So yeah, that was just to give Rob and everyone just a little bit of feedback on that.
Remind me of our petition rules, because will that then trump this? What causes the debate at full council? Only because if you do bring that to full council, that may end up, I'm just saying we might need better timings. Would that make
I
sense?
don't want to jeopardize anything. So the reason why it's not here tonight is because I finished late at work, so I couldn't print out in time at home. So that's the reason why it's not here, but I thought I'd give you the information that it was there. So.
Sorry if I put you on the spot there. I just know that if you want to bring it and then we end up discussing that, well, we don't have the information here.
It wasn't necessarily bring it was more to show evidence of support. Okay. So it wasn't necessarily just to have a debate. And I think it's 500.
It's 500.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to propose that we defer to the next meeting that I don't know when the date is, because the board 26th of May. Oh, okay, a little bit of time. And that probably does get enough time to get some people together. Who will take this forward to get that information, Marcus?
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Happy to do that. I know Will's in touch with the highways team about the additional traffic speed survey that she's having funded, and we can follow up on the other points you've asked for as well, and hopefully bring that forward to the next committee meeting on 26th of May.
So I'm proposing that as a change to the recommendations. I need a seconder. Rob seconding. Do we vote to change the recommendations and then vote on the paper, or we just? No, just vote.
You could just vote to defer.
So well, I'm proposing, Rob seconding, all those in favour? Perfect. Thank you. Thanks for coming tonight. It's our first time, I think, doing this. So yeah. So,
Cool, thank you.
Well run. So over to agenda item number 6. So our health and safety audit. John, over to you.
Thank you. The health and safety report. WorkNest attended the depot on the 27th of January this year and completed the independent general risk assessment and the health and safety audit. I forwarded 2 documents to you. Appendix A, which was the general risk assessment for WorkNest. The Appendix B was the overview of the actions from the report. The audit found there was 12 low priority actions. These have to be completed within 6 months. The new assets team have started on these and currently working, closing them down. Thank you for your time. Any questions?
Paul, over to you.
Just to confirm that the dates, so in the report it said, is that to be completed by the 27th of April 2026? In the report it says the complete by date. They're all the 27th of April.
All right.
You just said 6 months.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure which was right and which was
on
wrong.
the report. It says priority 3, which is 6 months. So, I mean, to be honest, a lot of them are closed now. So I can probably close the remainder by end of April.
Yeah, sorry. Yes. So that if I'm looking at the right report, it says complete by the 27th of April.
Also,
I don't know if that's enforced. My point was, it seemed like quite a lot of stuff to get done in a month.
Yeah.
But I can see you're well on the way of doing some of them in the other report. So
on the report it says low priority 3, which states up to 6 months.
Any other questions or comments on this? Just from public's benefit, it's not showing in our online pack, so I guess it will go into the minutes, or it'll have to be uploaded afterwards so that people can see that what we're actually talking about? Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
okay.
Yeah. From my point of view, it's good news, obviously, because it's less than what we had when we first had our audit last year. I think we discussed it a few meetings ago. It would be good whether we could have moving forward, whether we've got like year-on-year comparisons. I don't know if that's possible, saying of, I don't know, in 2025 we had RAG ratings 10 red, 3 amber, 2 green. That's completely wrong, by the way, but just seeing how we're improving year on year, because it just shows how important we are taking health and safety, as we are a bigger organisation as well, our own depot, all of those kind of things. That would be my only, I like to see things year on year, but that's my own view. Bob, any questions?
No.
Any other questions? No. I'm happy to propose it. And seconding it. All those in favour? Oh, that was nice and sweet, John. You can stay for the rest of the meeting, or you can.
I'm going, thank you.
Yeah, do it that way. So over to you, Gail, for our financial update.
The reports at appendix 1 and 2 are the income and expenditure report for the 11 months to the end of February, and the balance sheet at that date, which also shows the earmarked reserves that we're currently carrying or were at that date. There are no significant adverse variances in the report, although there is some underspend showing. But I'm currently working with the projects team and operations and assets and community in place to look at any projects that have been agreed but we are not yet spent. So we'll be putting money at the year end into an earmarked reserve to cover those funds. In addition, our general reserve is currently running at about £1 million, but to meet the reserves policy, that needs to be £1.5 million. So money will have to go back from the budget into the general reserve at the year end to meet that policy. So that's the income and expenditure and the budget. So we're obviously 1 month away from the end of the year.
Any questions? What we'd do, I think we normally do it on the financial update, is that we look to take it bit by bit on questions, just so that we're not jumping all over the report. So if we look at the income and expenditure report, which is at appendix A, anyone got any questions on that at all? No. And then with the balance sheet at appendix 2. Questions on that at all? I do like how transparent we are on all of this. Mm-hmm. It is really easy to see, like when people question, rightly so, you can see all the different things that we are doing. So if we've not got any questions on those two elements, so I'm just scanning back up to the next bit, up and down these report, is looking at the environments. This is where we're moving money around. Anything?
This is where we move budget around, yeah. And we've done some of that, but only very minor amounts in that month, and that was for central services, really just to put some areas of overspend back in line as there were over budgeting. So there were very few incomes. There will be some more at the end of March to cover the monies that we move around from the buckets that we set up, the ground maintenance, etc., and 1 or 2 other areas.
I'll just come back to that bit at the end of the council reserve policy. Is that set for us at a national level? That's what we set ourselves in our own reserves to be financially prudent?
Yes, the general rule is for the council to hold between 3 and 12 months in the general reserve, and obviously for smaller councils it's higher end, and for larger councils it's the lower end in terms of timescale. But generally 3 months is the minimum.
And it'll be in a couple of weeks that we see lots of those movements happening as we head towards the end of the year.
At the
Yeah.
year end, the money that's left over goes into together.
So just then looking at the final bit, isn't it, of this report is our payments. So again, even more transparency. I'm not expecting Gail to know the ins and outs of every single payment if it boils down to £3.10 on here. But any questions or comments on anything that we're detailing with regards to the different payments that we are making?
As you say, it's that level of detail that's always provided, that's that transparency.
Just one comment here. Are all these papers available for public scrutiny?
I'm on the website at the moment.
Good.
So yeah, people can have a look.
As you rightly say, it's fully transparent, and if anybody is or wants to ask a question, I'm sure they can come back to us to ask any member of the public.
So on that note, if no one's got any further questions or comments on this paper, we've got our recommendations to note, isn't it? So yeah, we're just noting them. So I'm happy to propose. And the second up, all that, and all those in favour, voting, perfect. So we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is our resilience plan.
Thank you. Good evening, members. Yes, before you today is a more sort of like defined plan around financial resilience for 26-27. Obviously, this is our second full year, financial year of being a team of financial resilience and income generation. Last year hasn't been without its challenges. I'll be honest with you, and there's some of those set out within the financial resilience plan for you to note. The overall intention really is to give us a bit of a foundation, to give us some direction, for me to give people like Will a work plan for the year, so that we've got some good areas of concentration. The other part of the plan really is to explore some of the areas, some new financial areas, some new income generation, so for example, community lottery, to look at things like the big projects like Hinkley and Gravity, to understand where we stand within all of those. So before you tonight is the plan. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any for questions? Karen.
Might be worth having a check in with the MP's office just about agriculture, because I know there's been link. They seem quite keen on Taunton and doing something.
Okay. Yeah.
I can't say any more than that, but it might be quite. They might have some better intel or contacts as well about in relation to that. I don't know how that will impact the plan, but anyway, I just thought I'd mention it while I thought.
Lovely, thank you. I'll make contact. I also know the service manager, my previous roles, so I can also make contact with her as well. So trying to use a bit of the old college network type thing.
And there's in the report I noticed that the mention of net bio gain. So that's where if the developer can't do the 10% improvement on biodiversity, they can buy. I can't remember what the terminology is. They can like buy, basically buy what somebody else has already done to boost biodiversity. So is it when you reference that is the idea that if we've rewilded something, we can then monetize that somehow? I'm trying to get my head around how that.
To be truthful, Councillor, I don't think I've really got my head around it at the moment myself. It was I went to a Now Prevent where one of the town councils, and for the life of me I couldn't tell you which one it was now, had actually been raising quite significant amounts of net bio gain, whereby in actual fact where they couldn't do what they wanted to do, they were buying a portion of parks to do things with. Sorry, I don't know the details, and that's one of the reasons why there is a lot of work to do there, very similar to community lottery. But yeah, that it was one of a town council somewhere has actually made significant income gains by doing that. But I think we do need to explore it and understand it fully as to what it really means for us against what we're also already planning to do as well. So.
Just a general point. I've got no issue with the report as such. I always say the same. I keep reiterating the same thing, but I don't think we should be too hung about chasing tiny sums of money, especially not if it's like community groups, park events and stuff. I think the bigger money to be gained is things like, recently we recommended that officers say to Somerset Council, no, we want the preception all in one go, and that netted what, that was saved just 600 grand, that was some, wasn't it? It was some horrific amount. 65. Okay, 65. Well, it's still worth having. So I think the bigger chunks of money are the ones that, you know, you need to be looking at. Actually, I think that will make the biggest difference. But I do think it is about, you know, diversifying, and I'd love to see some more work done on the idea of the lottery.
Will Rowe has done an awful lot of work on that, spoken to a lot of town councils who've got it. Unfortunately, a lot of the town councils who've taken on community lotteries are really in their first year, so it's a little bit difficult to establish how they're going to do. But unfortunately, the reality is, you know, that they're not making big sums. But then it depends whether or not you tested up for a short-term gain or a long-term gain. So there are opportunities and there are options there, but certainly we will be bringing a report at some point in the new municipal year as to what the options are for members to have a look at and to have a discussion like.
Any other call?
Yeah, not a question really, just kind of following up what Councillor Ellis said. I think are generally supportive of trying to identify good streams of income, but it may be that slow and steady is the best way to go, and careful consideration of any schemes. And also I think the report's good and it gives us a solid base to move forward by good areas.
Is the lemon booking, is that how we do the park charges? Yeah. So is that a case that we pay them a lump sum, they process our payments, or do they take a percentage?
Lemon bookings really just about a booking system. It just provides us with the facility to book our parks and then bill people for booking parks and things like that. So,
but does it cost us any money to
it
use?
does cost us an amount of money, yes. So
Do you know what that is?
I do know, but I think it'd probably be my head, it's not a large sum of money, should we say?
Okay.
But you know, at the end of the day, the booking system, although it probably isn't the plan as such, but the booking system is one of the things that actually you need to get that. And a report will come to members at some point in the new year as to what things do.
Thank you.
Any other? I need a proposer. Les? And the seconder? All those in favour? Perfect. Thank you, Angela, for that. We're on to agenda item number 9, which is internal audit.
So the internal auditor came back on the 12th of February for the second interim visit. He did more work that time on our income and looks for controls around income, albeit that we don't have an awful lot of income, but he did look at all the controls around the income. And he conducted further reviews of our expenditure and our payments. You'll note from the report that in total on both reviews, he's looked at 101 individual transactions, which total about 3.6 million. So that represents 83% by value of the non-salary related payments for the year to date. So that's a significant review. And you will also note from the report that's attached, there are no items arising from this report, as there were no items arising from the first report. And we will review the final report after we close down on the 24th of April.
Sorry, I keep going with this. That was a wow moment because we have had a second report with no items arising. So that shows just how positive our controls and everything is, and that's done by an external auditor. So it's not internal auditing as well. Not that, you know, those are still always independent. But over to questions, but very well done from me, Gail, to you and the team. Bev.
Now, I'd just like to again echo Federica's thoughts and say well done to Gail and the team for steering us along this wonderful path again. So well done.
Any other questions, comments on it? Oh, just a note. So I'll propose that I'll note it because it's, again, excellent news. And it's seconder. I got carried that time. I spread the love. All of those in favour, please show. Perfect. So we'll move on to the next item. That was nice and quick, that one, wasn't it? So financial regulations review.
This and the following reports are the review of the suite of governance documents that we hold. So this is the annual review of the financial regulations. You'll see from the report that there's been some minor changes, obviously, to take account of the town clerk's changing title. But in section 3, you'll see the main changes. So there's been a bullet point removed because the full council don't agree salaries for employees. That's done by the personnel committee. There's in section 4.10, I've amended council to finance and governance because that's in line with the terms of reference here. In section 4.11, I'm suggesting that when I have the opportunity to, in line with the financial regulations, place money to financial reserve at the year end where we have ongoing projects, it would make sense if, as a result of the fact that they're ongoing projects that have been agreed, then the RFO can release those monies and they don't have to go back to full council to be released. So that's what I'm proposing there. There's a section on procurement and that's in line with the now model regulations. That's just the changes to the procurement legislation. Section 6 has been amended to reflect the process of to sign for authorisation of all monies transferred to and from the public sector deposit fund, which is where we hold the bulk of our reserves. Section 6.5 says in accordance with the resolution of the council for making payments, well, the council doesn't make a resolution in advance for all the payments we make, but this committee does see those payments in arrears. And Appendix 1 has been there's an amendment there for the tender process because we now have a new tender law. Slight amendment. So those are the key changes to that document.
Thank you. From my point of view, I really like that summary of changes where you can see that and it gives that kind of understanding of why we're doing it. So that's really welcome. I don't have any questions on the documents that all make sense where you see the summary of changes to why they're happening. Nice and clear in my world, and that will also be kept for posterity, won't it? Because you can reference it back through the minute. Any questions on this? We like it when things are clear and concise, then we can Rob, nothing for you?
No. I just would like to say I thank Gail and Angela and the team for all the work that they do, and you know, the officers work on F&G, Finance and Governance Committee, is invaluable, and it really is good to see how transparent it is for us and the public of how we account for our funds and monies. Thank you, Gail.
So on that, I'm happy to propose. I need a seconder. I'm going to go Paul this time, only so I think I'm going to get through all 5 of you as proposals and seconders. So all those in favour, please show. Unanimous on that one for you, Ollie. So we'll move to the next item, which is the scheme of delegation. Ollie.
Thank you, Chair. So like Gail said, this is part of our annual governance review. And the key changes have been taken into account organisational changes, so splitting of the operations and assets manager with head of ops and head of assets, aligning the scheme of delegation with the financial regulations, and also giving a clearer definition of delegated officer responsibilities. And then when it comes to the changes to committee delegations, there's now been a change to the grants committee with ward members initiative scheme and the town twinning and event grants going through that committee. And additionally, the personnel committee is acting as a steering group for the white ribbon accreditation. And finally, the key major change is the planning development licensing committee now being responsible for the street trader permit applications and determining their approvals based on officer advice. I'm happy to take any other questions.
Open to any questions. Karen?
Yeah, so this is just a necessary sort of updating, isn't it, in line with recent organisational changes that I get. There was just one bit that jumped out at me. I think this is wording, where it talks about the head of communities in place. It just says has delegated authority to undertake and maintain the council in ensuring that all aspects of yada yada work streams are managed. I just like the wording doesn't make sense. It's not right. I just thought, could we put that in a bit clearer English? It would be helpful. I just did it. Things like that just jump out at me, and I go, that's not a good way of constructing that sentence. Can we just amend it so that it reads better and is clearer? Because undertake and maintain the council, I don't know, it doesn't make sense.
Ollie?
I'll be happy to take that back to SLT, but it's already been through and they've had oversight over it. But yeah, be able to provide
Yeah, maybe
bullet
even
points.
just there's some clarity of wording. I think we're understanding, yeah. That'd be helpful.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No.
No? Subject to just that being put in probably simpler English. I'm happy that we move forward and propose it, because that's just noted that can just be a change, because it no longer doesn't change the meaning of it. I need a seconder. Caro, you got your hand up first. All those in favour? You. So going to standing orders.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So once again, key changes is the change in title. There's also been the some sections are being taken out because of repetition, because I think there was probably just some ad hoc additions in previous years, and additionally there's been some clarity about committee substitutions and replacements. So as you all know, I sent out an email a couple of weeks ago about apologies being sent 24 hours in advance. This is to align with that policy so we can get substitutes with 24 hours. And also if there was ever the case that somebody wanted to be permanently removed from a committee, that would require written notice and full council approval. There's also been some transparency about written questions and statements from councillors. So these can be submitted 24 hours in advance and will be circulated before the meeting, and will be appended to the minutes. Yeah, just removal of duplicate and repetitive sections, and it's also been reviewed in line with the model standing orders and any other legal updates. So happy to take any other questions.
I've got a question, and I think it's relevant to this. Is I noticed when I was reading out, if you leave the room, you cannot vote. And where does that come from? Because I always thought that it was a at unitary level, definitely it's a guidance, but if you've just popped out but the meaning of the meeting hasn't changed, you can actually vote still, because actually it's around you understanding it. So I don't really like the rule. Sorry, it's probably fundamentally my view. So I just think if people are popping to the toilet, then they should be allowed to vote. I think it's their discretion as to whether they feel that they are got enough information to represent those that they've been voted for to vote. But I don't know. Sorry, Ollie, to put you on the spot. I only thought about it actually when I read that out, and then Paul popped to the toilet and I went, but he could have voted because he didn't really miss anything. Sorry.
Do you know which section it is exactly?
No, because it's only because I read it from there. I don't know where it is in our.
If it's in bold, it's legislation and we can't change it. If it's in
They legislate at town and parish level for standing orders for our meetings.
Yes.
Completely different.
Yeah. True. Yeah. So if it's in bold, anything that's in bold, we can't. It's mandatory.
Well, actually, what's really?
We don't know where it is.
Okay. What would be called leave meeting? Oh, it's not in bold. Oh, hold on. No, hold on. That's 1.18 says leave meeting. Yeah, I don't know where I don't know where it is.
I can't find it.
Do you think we can review that?
I can take it away, Chair, and then bring it to the full council meeting for final
The full
approval.
council have to
Yeah.
agree these, don't they? So that's my own view, is I'd rather, if we could go away and look at that then, and I'm happy to put a recommendation forward, subject to obviously committee's agreement, that if you go away and research it, if it is that it's not legislation, I would like it proposed to full council that that ruling is removed.
Yeah.
Does that seem fair? I need a seconder for that. Harrow. And all those in favour of that recommendation going in? Not unanimous, but passed. So I'll leave that there, open it up to other questions on this paper. Carol.
Just two things I was going to strongly agree with you. If you've had a nasty bladder infection, but you've done all your work, read your papers and everything, and then I have sat here last year, I haven't had, since I've been on the peppermint tea, that's that out. It is the elixir of life. I suffered. I can tell I was an absolute agony. It was horrific. And and then the entire meeting would have to be stopped in order. So I just sat there suffering, and it was totally unnecessary. So I'm absolutely passionately in favour of that, getting rid of that stupid rule, for certain. I was just trying to think, sorry, I'm flicking down so long, and I'm trying to, I wanted to make a point, but I can't find the right bit, and I can't remember what it says because it's too long. It was stuff about, oh damn it. Is there even anything in it in the standing orders? It was that my sort of, I'm just a bit curious about what happens with certain agenda requests, right? Some and how they get to committee, and whether it's just an SLT strategic leadership team just decides, or the clerk decides, no, not going to have that going forward.
Mark as well.
There's just been a couple of times when I've just thought, it didn't sit well with me, because I completely understand that the clerk is the proper officer. The clerk has to check that stuff is like kosher, where it's not asking us to do something illegal. But I just have the sense that it's a bit too sort of, I don't know, there's not enough democratic input maybe in terms of what gets on agendas, and it's a bit sort of random.
The chair of the committee can also decide, because you have a pre-meet to say whether or not. Can't you? So,
I think you'll find that the agenda is the clerks doing that.
okay.
And as a consequence of that, the registrar can decide what goes on.
That's the bit I have a slight, that might be technically, legally, I mean, you might be right, that's legally, but anybody with a legal power or duty or whatever, they can exercise it in such a way to take, I don't know, it's just that, I used to think that with parish councils, I mean, most of them were, if any elected member wanted something on the agenda, as long as it wasn't like calling for something, totally illegal to be done, or something that wasn't within the powers of the council, but pretty much if you get something on the agenda, it just doesn't sit well with me that if you've got elected members, if they want to bring something to a meeting that is within the remit of that meeting, and it's they've done their form, they've looked at all the financial implications, they've got the all ecological implications, that it just literally just comes out of the clerk and literally just decide doesn't. So I'm just sort of thinking that there needs to be that might be the way that it is legally, that all power to the clerk, which interesting. But I just think there needs to, maybe procedurally, there needs to be a bit more, I don't know, flexibility, and a bit more the almost like the instinct, the premise ought to be that, yeah, we'll let it go on the agenda unless there's a very, very good reason why it shouldn't, as it were. I know people have put, I know in the past people have put agenda requests on, and they just like disappeared into the ether occasionally, or then sometimes they've been delayed in getting to a particular committee, and it seems to be just an officer decision, and I just don't sit well with me, and I would just like something around a bit more of a enabling, flexibly, bit more say for membersy flavour, even if technically the clerk is all powerful. Does that make sense?
Marcus, I'm wondering if you can give some guidance. For me, I'm not sure I want to update these standing orders tonight. I'm wondering if it's something that we can take away just to see how the agenda form's working, how all of that's doing, but I welcome your guidance.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Ellis, for your feedback on the agenda request form process. I think there is a process in the standing orders around motions that require written notice to be given to the proper officer at section 9, which might be one of the other facilities that you say have for a councillor to put something on the agenda. But even that, it says, you know, at 9.8 it can be rejected without an explanation by the proper officer. So happy to take that away, but thank you for the feedback.
Yeah, I'm happy if it's we go away and look at it, because like you'd have to give an explanation at least. That's just like basic natural and yeah, just you know, sort of whatever. But I just think we've got to be very careful. I think people, you know, councillors done some research on something, even if the what's the word? The default ought to be that you know, the clerk would just allow it unless there was a very good reason not to. Yeah, and then there will be reasons given, or you go back to them saying, look, I'm really sorry, that agenda for this committee, I can see that you've done something very well researched and what doodah, but the agenda for that one is crammed. Is it urgent, or are you happy to wait for the next one? I don't know. It just the balance at the moment feels off a bit. So if we can take that away and look at it, I would be content.
Yeah, sorry, just to add, I think, yeah, no, that's perfectly logical and what we've sort of been doing. Like, I take example, Councillor Fashini's tonight. I think he originally wanted to say that to full council, and we said, well, if you're looking to do something under our policy on SIL, that actually should be going to finance and governance. We had that conversation and dialogue, and you know, the explanation was accepted and it was taken through in that way. So, you know, happy to have that dialogue with councillors and you know, be open and transparent about how we operate. Thank you.
Yeah, it would be good to have that conversation. From my point of view, I don't actually know how many agenda request forms we actually have done to see how well they've actually worked, because this seemed to work from my point of view with him coming tonight, even though I know it was quite a long and open debate with lots of back and forth. It seemed to work well, but it was an intricate subject, wasn't it? But Rob?
Yes, Chair, thank you. On our decisions tool, there is suggest an agenda item function. Where that goes to, I don't know. And he said there on the top of the agenda, before you open it up in the decisions, it is suggested an agenda item which would then go through. And I would hope that would be the start of that process. So there might be other forms come out from that, would it, Marcus, perhaps?
Well, he's going to investigate that.
Yeah, I think the preferred method would be to use the agenda request form that's on the website and send that to the clerk, but we can look into the use of that on decisions.
Yeah, I realise that the standing orders are there to give us some control if we need to, but what looks like the track changes at 3.5.1, where it asks members of the public who wish to ask a question must submit their question by noon on the day before the meeting to the Chief Executive Officer and Town Clerk. I mean, certainly we don't want loads of people turning up unexpected with 25 questions, so I understand why it's there, but a lot of times, certainly in planning, some of the people come and they've come to the planning meeting and they don't realise that they had to submit it 24 hours before. So I'm guessing the chair has some leeway there to take those questions, and we've only got that there if like 26 people turn up with the same question. We can say we can use that to enforce it. I just don't, I'm not sure we should be enforced if public and interact with us. We shouldn't say, oh, according to our standing orders, you didn't submit your question, so we're not going to hear it. I don't anticipate that's what we're going to do, but I just wanted to double check.
Ollie?
So that, I think that's been in our standing orders for a while, and it's up to the chair's discretion how they really enforce the standing orders. And it's often been the case that we have people turn up on the night who haven't given us a statement. We allow them to speak. I think it's mainly for us internally that we're able to circulate that to the chair, and then we'll be able to provide a more comprehensive response. Yeah.
personally like people being able to turn up and speak. That's my own view, because of the fact that it allows greater people who want to come and partake and hopefully watch and enjoy themselves. However, I do know from my unitary role that if you don't have those questions in advance, I cannot give you the background if you're asking a really detailed particular question, of which it can be one of many across all of Somerset, that it helps. So I know why it potentially does help, at least trying to have things in advance.
Okay.
Otherwise, people may just get a written response and then that doesn't allow others to partake. But Caro?
Just following on from that, because loads of meetings what I've been to, the chairs want, anyone else want to, say, and then somebody's, well, I'm here, yeah, no, yeah, okay, yeah, thanks. And I do think that somebody might find out on Facebook about a meeting happening like that night and they haven't, and they desperately want to come. And so we need to, when we've had engagement with the public and people have come in, it's been great. That's what we're all about, isn't it? It's about being an open council. So I don't know whether, rather than it just being something where it's at the chair's discretion and yada yada, could we add something to it? I don't know. I don't know how you do it. To sort of, subject to, length, time available, or whatever. Something to indicate that you may be able to speak even if you haven't. Ideally you would give notice to, but that wouldn't, if you haven't, that wouldn't preclude you. Do you know what I mean?
I understand where you're coming from. Personally, I like it the way that it is, and then the chair has that discretion, because it does depend on, I think having that ability, that just sets like the rules, but allows the chair to bend it. Is that right? I don't know. Rather than if you then, I don't know how many members of the public read our standing orders. I don't know how many councillors read our standing orders, but I would rather it be like, that's my own personal view, but I open it up to others. Ed?
I can see under 31.3, near the bottom of the document, it says the decision of the chair of the meeting as to the application of standing orders at the meeting shall be final. So I think that goes into, they can interpret things as they want.
We think chairs have power. I didn't know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
No, I'd agree with you, Federica, because I think it's just, as chair, it's useful to have that ability to use that discretion. I think maybe if people want a little bit more detail, then it's advisable, as you've said, to put it in before, so that officers can collate all the information to give a detailed response. But I think majority of people, for me, it's just that it's great just to have people come in and be interested in a committee. I think that's the most important thing. As you say, I don't think people read the standing orders, but it's it's about having people coming in and being interested and taking part in that. For me, I read the standing orders. Members of the public don't.
I'm going to bring in Paul and then Caro.
Yeah, just following up kind of on that, I don't know if that's reflected on our website at all anywhere, that people should submit the questions, because I'm not sure people will find our standing orders. In the meetings agenda section, it says members of the public are welcome to attend our meetings. See details or contact us.
I thought we do put comms out sometimes saying you can ask your question, don't we?
Comms goes out, and then there is that statement on the meetings and agenda section of the website, but
we don't have to direct people to ask their questions to the right committee, though, do we? We would always say someone could ask a question of, I don't know, they could come tonight and ask a question that might be better for ops and assets, as an example.
yeah. So when we get questions that are submitted beforehand, we'll normally direct them to the right committee.
Sorry, just to say, did you say it's on the website that people are expected to submit it 24 hours before?
I don't actually think it is, so I can make that change.
No, like I say, I don't think people will. I think usually in my experience, it's like we've discussed, the chairs have like that kind of ability to let people know.
Because interestingly, I've been reminded that questions should only be on items on the agenda, even though we regularly see probably that not always being the case, because we allow people to vocalise their queries on all of the work that we do, particularly at full council. But that would be at the chair or chair mayor's discretion. Caro?
Yeah, I just prefer things to say, so we're saying that the one, what's in here and what actually happens in practice are two different things. Essentially, because the chair has discretion. I've never heard a chair suspending standing orders in order to allow somebody who hasn't put in their question by the allotted thing to speak. I've seen loads of occasions where somebody's indicated, yeah, I'm going to come along, I'm going to come along to the committee, and it's kind of just understood they're going to say something about something on the agenda, but I haven't heard any. Is there not something we could put in at the discretion of the chair that other, you know, questions may be taken, even if you haven't? Because that's more telling it how it is and being clear, isn't it? It shouldn't rules about how councils work be clear.
I think Ed pointed out before, 31.3 is very clear. The decision of the chair of the meeting as the application of standing orders at the meeting shall be final. So we don't have to spend standing orders to take a question, because it's the chair's discretion to take that question.
It's a bit like if you actually read how members should act, we should ask questions in statements in writing in advance, not how I do every meeting, ask questions in person. But yeah, so especially if you want them in the minute. Sorry, Carrie.
Yeah, so that statement that just read about the chair of the meeting can do whatever they like. That's good. So they can just like chuck out sort of other bits. Well, normally it says in the rules this, but we can just do whatever. Interesting.
So I'm happy with how these are, apart from the amendment on the voting, going back to your conversations ago. So if I'm happy for us to move forward with these as they are, I'm happy to propose them. I don't know, I need a seconder. Rob, all those in favour? Unanimous. Perfect. So, oh, we're on to our code of conduct. Oh,
Yes.
now you can tell us what we need to do there, Ollie.
Well, in regards to this one, there's been no changes from Somerset Council or any other body. I think the OGN reuse their model code of conduct, OGA, sorry. So for this, it will just be recommending the readoption to full council with no changes.
Remind me, we follow, because if people make complaints, they go to the monitoring officer of Somerset Council for them to then arbitrate and follow due process in relation to poor code of conduct from members. Is that right? Well, any questions on this? But it is saying as it is, and it follows a very set process, which probably, even though Taunton Council haven't been going years, but a very set process in local government. So I don't propose that we make any changes to this, because it is a well-trodden, well-versed working path. Any questions or comments? No? I'm happy.
I'll propose it.
Oh, who would like to second? Bev?
You propose everything.
All those in favour? That's passed. So next item on the agenda, rolling on down. Will we send a copy of these while we go back to the members' code of conduct? Well, now we've signed it off, can a copy go out to all members just to remind them?
Yeah, these will have to go to full council.
Oh, go to
along
full
with-
council, and
yeah.
then, okay, perfect. Just so that everyone knows about all what they need to declare.
The same thought as me, fair.
All
I
that.
thought it would be a good idea.
Good idea,
And,
so
and then I
people-
realised it was coming to full
Okay,
council.
yeah. So we'll move on to the land adoption, is that next?
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So this is the Land and Open Spaces Adoption Management Policy 2026-2028. It was considered, as you can see in the report, by the Operations and Assets Committee in November. They obviously will have a great deal involvement in land and open spaces and the council's assets, so it's felt appropriate that they sort of had a first bite to look at this, and we had some really useful and positive feedback which has influenced the report that's before you tonight. One of those things was a scoring matrix which is attached to an appendice which has been drawn up since it was last considered, and further detail on that is at 2.12 and 2.13 as to the feedback that the committee gave and some of the amendments that have been made to the policy document which is highlighted in red in the policy document there for you to look at the changes that are proposed. It's obviously quite a topical subject. I know it's been raised in Parliament by our local MP, and it's a bit of an emerging and changing feast, but we think that this policy will help support the council in assessing and identifying opportunities for taking on land and assets as they're developed. We have commissioned, as part of a separate report which went to the Operations Assets Committee, some legal advice on the local authority management company advice, and we had an initial meeting with our legal team on that matter, and they were very quite cautious about involving ourselves in actually running a management company for an estate. They've said they act on behalf of private management companies, and they can be quite intensive in terms of dealing with resident complaints. And obviously I'll send around the formal advice as and when it comes in, but they're very much sort of the view that you'd be better off sort of having a company that provided services to the management companies in the estates around the Taunton area, rather than trying to be that management company yourself. But I'll send that advice on when we get that. I think it's to go to the stewardship working group first, but I think given that its wide-reaching impact, it probably would be better sent around to all councillors as well. Yeah, happy to take any questions, really, Chair.
I've got some questions and comments in relation to this. I'm not against us doing this. I was under the impression actually that unitary authorities weren't taking them on, not because of not wanting to take them on, but normally they're not up to the standards that a unitary council would want at handover point in order to then take on. There are still some that are in the pipeline, but a lot of it is about actually it being done to the regulations as to how they would want to do it. So I guess that for me raises a question for us in relation to the policy. How would it work in practice, that if we wanted to take on something, that actually is it up to the standard at the point of handover that we would expect it to be, that it's been done to local authority standard, not just developer standard? Does that make sense what I'm asking? Because I would ultimately want it that if we were to take it on, that it's not additional cost that having then to do additional regulations, i.e. that it has had its weekly checks on play equipment, that the play equipment is in working order. That, I guess, the proof is in the pudding as to how this then works in practice.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I do agree that yes, in some sense it will be a bit of proof in the pudding. I do know that sort of the various garden town boards and the meetings with the stewardship team at Somerset, it's been sort of said that Somerset aren't in the business of sort of adopting open space anymore, but I'm happy to go back and like you say, that I know there are cases where they're waiting on compliant things for the estates that they haven't committed to taking on before they will come on. So that is the live consideration. I think in the policy at section 7, it talks about meeting the council's standards for accessibility, design, safety and maintenance. So of course, yeah, if a member brings somebody through, we would obviously have to make sure that they do meet that criteria before we took the plunge and took something on, and then if we didn't do that, and then we would have a load of unfunded liabilities in terms of peeling back the onion and finding out problems beforehand. So I think definitely due diligence prior to taking anything on.
That's really useful, only because I'm dealing with several at the moment in relation to developer to unitary. My other question is, would we, I may have overthought this, but we wouldn't use this policy in relation to any devolution of land, because even though we are adopting land, it's not adopting land from a developer. So how would we make sure that the standard that the unitary were to hand over, say we wanted to have some play parks devolved to us, it wouldn't be this policy that would be, remind me, does it make sense? So if Somerset wanted to devolve some land, yeah, it's under this. So are we therefore expecting Somerset to bring the land up to the standard that we want to do? Because that isn't normally how devolution works in all instances.
I think we would obviously try and drive best bargain for the town council in terms of that transaction and any liabilities. I think when we had the feedback from Ops and Assets, we did build in some more flexible wording within the policy where it talked about things like commuted sums and things like that. So I haven't got the specific section, but I think that there would be safeguards to allow members to make those determination of risks and reward. Thank you.
And then my final question, I guess, comes back to that Somerset element more so, is that we don't just, for me, it's around us taking land, but we look at Taunton holistically. We don't just take one piece of land over here and then something over there. That I don't know whether it is again in the strategy, but that it's just done for political reasons, whether that's big P or small p, that we look at what is it that's a benefit to us as Taunton Council. So I think that is just probably again as to how this plays out. But Caro, over to you.
Yeah, I remember a long discussion on this when it was at Ops and Assets, and I'm pleased with the changes that have been made in terms. This is a framework document. This is like setting out the framework and setting out all the different options, ways in which land could come to us, different considerations, and I think it does it quite well now. And I think before I was a bit worried it was hemming ourselves in. There wasn't that flexibility, and now that's been addressed, and also the sections about community engagement and involvement also been addressed. So I'm quite happy with it actually in its current form. No doubt, because we review all these things, don't we, on a kind of rolling basis. It will get reviewed at some point. But I kind of think it's a framework that should enable us to make tricky decisions, and they will be tricky, and it will be about balancing up different factors, I think. But yeah, I'm not saying, nothing is screaming out, oh no, to me. I think this is all quite sound.
Ed. Oh, sorry, Bev, then Ed, sorry. I did say Bev, sorry, earlier, and then yeah, sorry.
Thanks, Chair. No, absolutely, I agree with Councillor Ellis as well. And I think particularly when we're looking around the Orchard Grove development, I think this is going to be really important because it's, again, and I'm sure Councillor Stainthorpe would agree as well, because obviously she's worked very, very hard with the Orchard Grove. And it's about just setting out what our expectations as a town council instead of actually accepting, and the role that the developers actually play in that handover potentially of anything. So no, I think it's a good document. Thank you.
Now, Ed.
Yes, I think we're obviously definitely best placed to take on and maintain parks. My personal preference has always been that we should have been creating our own management company so that we had full control over it. But if it's the case that for staff, they wouldn't be able to take on that volume of work to process everything, and that we in the end we're just the ones that are able to do the work based on those complaints, then that's at least something. I just want to make sure that we're not in a situation where residents don't have any kind of contact or don't ever hear back from anyone when they do raise issues.
You have a question, Rob?
No.
Oh. Anything else to add? No? Okay. Can I have a proposer? Bev. And Ed, you're seconding? All those in favour? We'll move on to the final item on our agenda, which is the cadet policy.
And I'm delighted to be presenting this report to the committee. So the Community and Place Committee recommended for approval the adoption of the Mayor's Cadet Policy and the supporting documents, Appendix A, you'll find on your iPad. And the policy has been developed in consultation with the local Cadet Corps and the Wessex Reserve Forces and Cadet Association, and establishes a formal framework for the appointment, role and safeguarding arrangements for the Mayor's cadets. Basically, the Men's Cadet role provides an opportunity for young people from the Armed Forces Cadet organisations to engage with civic life, develop leadership skills and represent their organisations at official events. And the proposed policy allows for the appointment of up to 4 Armed Forces Mayor's Cadets per municipal year and sets out clear arrangements for selection, duties, safeguarding and recognition. And importantly, the policy has been drafted to align with the Council's commitment to the Armed Forces Covenant and its bronze level accreditation and the Defence Employer Recognition Scheme. And by looking at this and looking at other things, we can actually move towards the silver award with the Armed Forces Covenant. The important thing with this policy that it establishes safeguarding and amongst others and the DBS requirements for those within the cadets. From a corporate plan implication, again, this refers again to the signature to the Armed Forces Covenant and Taunton Town Council reaffirming its commitment to the local armed forces community, the veterans associations and the affiliated uniformed youth organisations. So that's that in brief. And subject to approval, it's anticipated that the DBS checks and selection process for the Mayor's Cadet will begin directly after this committee to allow for the new Mayor's Cadets to be identified, briefed and sworn in at the annual town meeting on the 7th of May on the Thursday. So happy to take any questions, Chair, if anybody has any. Thank you.
Do you go first and then I'll come in?
Is that safeguarding policy in line with Somerset Council as well?
Yeah, it's in line with our safeguarding policy, and I believe that Joe looked at all the safeguarding policies and also the safeguarding policies from each of the cadet forces as well. So it's based on the safeguarding within the cadet force. So yeah.
My question is actually around expenses and whether we're looking to pay expenses, because I can't see this in here.
No, it's a voluntary role.
But if they were coming to do something with us and they're incurring expenses, should we not reimburse them for that? Say that they don't have access to a car or they need additional support because they've got additional needs and they need, I don't know, cost, really transport's the big one where they're having to, they may live slightly out of town to come in. I just feel that we're giving someone an opportunity, we're allowing them to grow. Also, whether we would sign them off for like a DOV or something through this if they're doing DOV, but I just feel whether or not we need to pay expenses.
Yeah, I believe the organisation side of things is actually done through the cadet forces. I can go back to Joe and confirm that. The cadet forces are actually managing it, the process as a whole. This particular policy has just been put in place to cover us as a town council and our commitment to it, to make sure that the safeguarding is in place for those Mayor Cadets and those processes. But no, I agree with what you're saying, and I will take that back to Joe Civic Lead just to query that.
Because we're saying in the bit that the parents or the caregiver signs, that they accept responsibility for in doing the travel arrangement.
Yeah,
it does say unless otherwise agreed with the Mayor's office, but I'm just where, you know, they may live, I don't know, just like the outside of the town centre and it cost or anything. I wouldn't want someone where cost is a prohibitive factor so they're not applying for it.
Yeah, and that is a valid point, and I'll take that back. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments, Paul?
So they're looking at the list for the DBS check. So are they going to they're going to be conducted for all those people before May? So that includes the deputy mayor, right? And so on civic occasions, I'm trying to scan quickly to see who's ultimately responsible for that person when they're at the event. So if they wandered off, who do we ask to keep an eye on?
13, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's unlikely that they will be ever alone, and they have that they have a responsibility for themselves.
Okay, so sorry, I'm not a parent. So what does 13 mean? That's different to 12? You said they're 13.
Well,
so
from the age of 13, there's very different between 13 to 18-year-olds as to what you. So I guess your question, Paul, is who is the responsible adult
Yeah, I'm not talking
event and I'll-
about serious stuff. I'm
No.
saying if they were in the church in
Yeah.
the Minster,
you would-
and then at the end, somebody went, where's the cadet? We didn't know who ultimately is, or are we not? If they're 13, they're free to do.
No, not at 13, in my view.
Okay.
No, I think there is an expectation that whenever the mayor's cadets sign up, there will be they will have to sign up to to an agreement. So, yeah, so there will be, yeah, but I understand your point. Again, I can take that back.
Sorry, Chair, just to say, I didn't wish to come across as unsupportive of this there. I'm just asking the question in case somebody comes up or whatever. So, yeah, very supportive of this. Sounds like a good idea.
Any other questions or comments? Well,
Just a comment further on from that, the cadet, it would be very good if they were aware of who was a responsible person, if there was one. I should think the mayor ought to take that on personally for the first year anyway. No, there just needs to be a responsible person that.
see, I go with
knows-
an
with it.
employee of the council should be the responsible officer, not a councillor. Only, I don't know.
The mayor will be busy, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it may well be the civic lead, I don't know, but I think the overall responsibility will lie with the cadet forces. And it may be that the cadet forces put something in place for their cadets when they're on duty, if that makes sense. But again, I've made a note of it and I can double check on that. Thank you.
do we have a proposer? Paul?
Oh, sorry,
Right,
did you
so
want to do your?
And Bev proposed, Paul second, we'll do it that way. All those in favour, please show. Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's the end of the meeting, all done by 10 to 8.
Thank you, Chair.
Chair, if I could just say one thing, Stephen Norris has sent round some cyber security training, which I